Uh,
Yes,
yes, ma'am.
yes. Good morning.
Okay, very good. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see all of you again in Zoom um, for our first quarterly of the new year, of the fiscal year, of the calendar year. We have a lot of information to cover today, but we're going to move swiftly and not hold you up too long. Um, if you are a voting member of the committee, just send Joshua. You can put it in the chat your name if you're here on the call, and Joshua will check it off. It's not necessary to roll call non-voting members. There are a couple of things. Right now, we're going to let our guest speaker go and do her presentation. Then we'll get into our business of the day. So we have Miss Dr. Felicia Cavallini. Is that
Cavallini,
correct?
yeah. Yeah,
Very good.
yes, ma'am.
She's from Limestone University. Dr. Cavallini, I turn the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for having me address you this morning. And listen, I answer to anything. If you can think of any pasta name, Cavallini, Cavatini, I'll answer to it. My dad's from Rome, Italy. My mother was Spanish and Mexican, so I'm almost half Hispanic and Italian. So it's an honor and a privilege to be with you this morning. And again, I thank you for your time. And I just wanted to let you know that we are involved in a health and wellness study, an Indigenous Native American health and wellness study for Natives here in South Carolina. We are focusing exclusively on Native Americans in South Carolina, and we're using physical activity. My background is really all kinesiology and exercise science, but all of my research has been in population health, starting from a Fulbright in Canada 10 years ago. And so we are really studying people's relationship with physical activity and how that can be the conduit to improve overall health and wellness. And so I'm now focusing just exclusively on Native Americans here in South Carolina. And it's a two-part study, and we are in the middle of it. So the first part was all key informant interviews, and we were so grateful that among those 15 individual key informant interviews, we had 4 chiefs participate. Chiefs Nelson, Sharp, Hatcher, and Chief Creel participated. So from the feedback that we received from all key informant interviews, we designed a research-generated survey, and we have been disseminating now that survey out. And the key is to get as many Native people in South Carolina to fill out that survey. It is asking questions about your preference to how you want to be physically active, keeping in mind the Native holistic approach to life and community. And we look at your perceptions on physical activity versus exercise, but we're also looking at barriers. So are there lack of time barriers? Are there physical barriers, et cetera? And then we look at your motivators. And whether you're a gym member or not, we look at your outlook and perception on the gym environment. But then we also are extending that into mental health and overall health and wellness. And there is one part of the survey, it's 10 questions that we've elected not to publish because we feel like we want to make sure we're keeping everything safe and sound for the Native people in South Carolina. It's just simply Native American perception on Native Americans in South Carolina. But the results of those we'd like to share with the chiefs and any key stakeholders in South Carolina for the purposes of key, I think, policy decision making, funding, et cetera. So the key here, it's about your way overlooked and way overdue health and well-being. And, we're just working hard to try to move the needle forward. We think that it's long overdue We think that you deserve it. You know, you deserve this type of, I think, attention in any way. And I think, you know, you deserve to be more celebrated. I think there needs to be more focus and attention on Native Americans here in South Carolina. So this is really the whole point. So bottom line is, you know, I'll come to you. I will travel. I will go out there and go exactly to where you are. If you're having a gathering, any kind of a function, you know, we'll help, you know, with, let's say you're having a luncheon or having a breakfast, or, you know, we'll help, we'll bring food, we'll help with expenses, just so we can, you know, share fellowship. I can tell you, just recently, my husband and I went to visit with the Waccamaw tribe, and they had family day like 2 or 3 weekends ago, and it was just so much fun. We shared a lot of, you know, fellowship and sang songs, good old classic country and western songs. My husband can strum on the guitar, and so can Chief Hatcher. So they were singing together, and, you know, shared a lot of stories, and it was very special. So, you know, I think the more we understand you and more that we can share experiences with you, the better. So,
Well, thank you very much. I know that I think the traveling aspect is usually the part that I think a lot of our advisory members uh, do struggle with. So it's good that you are there to say you're willing to come into the communities.
absolutely.
I know
Yeah.
that I think it was Chief Hatcher that recommended that you be a guest speaker here.
Yes.
I know we have many of the chiefs that you've collaborated with on here, like Chief Nelson and
Yes.
Chief Creel, Vice Chief Donnie.
Yes.
But we always post events, you know, they always have events, so I would check with them on, you know, what they would like to see and if you could be invited, things along that line. And um, if that is everything, I think we're moving on to the point of the legislative update from Brenton.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. Just want to provide a few of the legislative updates. Joshua's already sent this information out, and so I will get the document up. There were a few legislative items that we are looking at trying to enact over the next couple of years over the course of this legislative session. The first one is going to be, I'm going to talk about some bills that have already been filed within the South Carolina House of Representatives, and then also one that was filed within the South Carolina Senate. I'm sorry, if you give me one moment. Having an issue with trying to get my screen share to work. All right, is everyone able to see my screen? Okay. The first is H 3414. That is to designate the second Monday of each October as Indigenous Peoples Day here in the state of South Carolina. The sponsor is Representative Jermaine Johnson. It's a bill that he has proposed for the last few years. That has been referred to the Committee on the Judiciary, and as of right now, it has not had a subcommittee hearing. And so I'll keep you updated once that, if and when that occurs. The next bill, I'm going to jump down to this third one to stay in the House bill, is a bill that was recently filed, H 4159, which is a bill to provide that the agency will be able to designate certain land as Native American reservations here at the state level. The sponsors for that particular bill were Representatives Petalino and Representative Haddon, and that too has been referred to the House Judiciary Committee. That was just done so within the last couple of weeks, and as of today, it has not been assigned to a subcommittee for a hearing, and I'll keep everyone updated as to when that occurs. And then the final bill, which was a bill from last year, it was Bill S20 concerning the duration of hunting and fishing licenses and permits for recreational use. That was put forward by Senator Brad Hutto. He did so last session and also pre-filed it late in 2024. That has currently been referred to the Senate Committee on Fish, Game, and Forestry, and it still, as of yet, has not had a subcommittee hearing. And I'll keep everyone updated as to when that occurs. And
Another
then,
thing,
Brenton, if you will tell them a little bit about the amendment that CMA faced on last week or the week before.
yes, ma'am. So last week, the South Carolina House of Representatives ended up debating the budget and they ended up passing that and is now in the Senate. You had some members of, excuse me, some members of the South Carolina House who are looking to cut about $1 billion from the state budget. As such, they placed amendments to the budget process to essentially do away with several state agencies, one of which was our agency, also the Arts Commission, the Sea Grant Consortium. Those amendments were ultimately defeated during debates, but it does not mean that the agency is out of the woods just yet. And so a lot of the directives that have been kind of in the atmosphere because of coming down from the federal government have reached the state level. And unfortunately, we got caught up in that. We had conversations with elected officials, especially those in the General Assembly. They're aware of the great work that we're doing as an agency across the state. And so they were willing to go to bat and fight for us. Thankfully, they were able to pull that amendment so that it did not have to be voted on. But Dr. DeCosta and I are in the process now of meeting with some legislators to determine what's going to occur with the future of the agency. So that's just kind of a very brief overview of a very hectic week last week for us here in the agency. We are on really good footing, but things can change. And as soon as we have a little bit more definite information, we'll be sure to update everyone in the advisory committee.
All right. Thank you, Brenton. Now,
Okay.
most of you have already, last year we got funding for grants to distribute to our Native communities. And most of you have already completed your applications. They have been processed. We got an email on yesterday. Procurement will start sending out checks today. So you should be seeing things in the mail within the next 7 to 10 days or so. In the meantime, I've asked Joshua to get with Leon to get the direct deposit form sent to you all so that you can set up a direct deposit account for future funding. If this funding stays where it is right now, we're still allowed to give it out next fiscal year. We want to make the process even easier than it is with the online application as well as a direct deposit so that you receive your funding a lot faster. It's taking a little bit longer because they've never had this set up in the computers and their systems. Now that they've put everything in the system and they know that these are earmarked dollars, I think they're prepared to start getting the checks ready, and it'll be easier the next time. You should be getting your money a lot faster. So be on the lookout for it. If you don't see anything within the first 10 days, give Joshua a call and we will check to see what checks were actually mailed out. Matter of fact, we can get a listing of checks that were mailed out by tomorrow. And that way you can be looking for it. So we'll let Leon check to see how many checks were sent out today and to what tribes. And we will provide that information to you. Joshua?
Once again, I just want to say a big thank you to Leon. He was a really big help in getting that response from admin and working to help us integrate this grant process. So I wanted to add one more thing to the legislative update. It's less about legislation and more about policy. As you know, Chief Brian Harris, although he cannot be with us at this point in time, he has recently been put on the Medicaid expansion subcommittee by the governor. And one of the things that he is working with Chief Collins and Chief Creel, because for the Medicaid waivers, one of the proposals is for tribes, but currently only federal tribes. We want to make it for tribes and groups recognized by the CMA as well as the federal government, since that is a state policy. And so that is a proposal that has been sent to him and his legislative coordinator, Tylee Anderson, and hoping to be introduced by him in their next subcommittee, and we can give you those updates once we receive them. Now, moving on, we've also been working with the Catawba because they have their license plate law, but there is also another license plate law on file. It has never been utilized. We briefly mentioned this a little bit last year, but we were able to pool the law in its relevant sections. That's one of the handouts we gave to you. So Kevin Schwedo, the executive director of the DMV, I know many of us have worked with him in the past. He has said that he wants input from you guys, the Council of Chiefs and everyone there, to say what you would like this to look like. And he would be willing to push any amendment as well as making sure this process gets started. Although this was put on the laws, no design was ever made and it was never actually utilized. I know one of the proposals was to change the where the funding was distributed from this program to something that'd be more relevant to helping you. But we wanted to provide this to you so that you can go in your subcommittee and you can discuss what you would like to see and bring that to us for us to help push on it. Since it's being pushed by the executive director of the DMV, that means it's something that would most likely happen because we do have the consent of the agency that is in charge of that process. Any questions on the DMV license plate update? Okay. And once again, as you know, Dr. Sarah Rich with Indigenize SC wanted us to share the SCETV project, which is somewhat of a continuation of the Know-It-All SCETV project back with the alumni of the Indian schools. They're kind of doing a somewhat continuation. They're trying to get from each tribe 3 people, 3 generations, some who may have faced either the Indian schools or faced segregation in schools, stuff like that. Then more recent, and then possibly even members of tribes currently in school. She has been sending out emails. We sent out an email, but if you have not gotten back with her, please do so. I know they are hoping to start filming for some of these interviews before the month is out. I think it's been greenlit, and I think I know Cheryl and Lamar, I don't think I was on that last meeting. I don't know if any update was done about funding, but I know it was partially funded by now. But please do get with her so that this project can go forward. And I think that is the last update. Other than that, let's move on into personnel and other updates by Dr.
You didn't talk
DaCosta.
about story mapping.
Oh, thank you. I do apologize. That is an important one. So sadly, I do have an update. So the story mapping project that we were able to push with Chief Harris to extend story maps similar to the Eddystone Natchitoches story map, we were in contract and working with Kit Kelly and her organization, Kit Kelly Consultant. She was the individual who made the story map for the Eddystone Natchitoches. We were provided, I think, about $1,000, $990, and we were able to work with the Catawba Foundation to provide an additional $16,000. Sadly, a few weeks ago, we did receive an email that she no longer wanted to do the project. We never received anything else, and she said the Catawba Foundation, the money was forfeited, and for us, those fundings were also being sent back. But we're still looking to see if there are any other avenues. But it is very sad that that occurred. We're hoping that we can work to maybe find another host of the project, or if any of you are aware of anyone who may be able to, we could support another project in that direction.
All right, thank you, Joshua. Regarding personnel, we have 2 people that left the agency in the last, oh, Cheryl, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I do have some connections with others that do story mapping, specifically through, yeah, so I can send that along to you. I'll just have to, I can't pull it from my brain right now, Joshua, but yeah, there's quite a few people that I've worked with through American Rivers that do this type of work. So I don't think we're in the weeds.
If you can get that to me, that would be great. I know that I can go before Chief Harris and we can get another proposal ready because the Catawba Foundation grant period opens on April 1st. So if we can get that before then, we can hopefully get the same amount of funding that we had last year to try to bring towards this project.
Okay, if you can just shoot me an email, that's my reminder. So I'll remind myself that I need to do that. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you, Cheryl. We will soon be posting positions for small business as well as Hispanic Latino program coordinators. So you can be on the lookout for those things. And this year, you know, advisory committees must be reappointed every 2 years if they're to stay on. And that is what my responsibility is. This year, we will be looking at all advisory committees to determine who's on and who wants to stay on. If you'd like to remain a member of the advisory committee, you need to give Joshua your name. And we're allowed 20 people, and I will need to fill the other slots with other members from the tribal communities. So if you want to stay on, please let Joshua know. Otherwise, you will be removed, and we will add new people to the advisory committee. And I'm doing it to all 5 of my advisory committees because we should have done it several years ago, but we have not, because I think it was more important for us to build relationships at CMA than to disturb anything that was working or what have you. But now that we have developed a great working relationship with the Native American communities, we want to keep this movement going. Everyone has recognized the relationship building that has taken place, including the governor and members of the General Assembly. But we want to hear from other voices also. So if you would like to stay on, please let Joshua know. Other than that, I will have to fill the vacant slots next time at the next advisory meeting. Any questions?
Dr.
or
DeCosta?
concerns? Yes.
I do. So there was a mandate in the regulations for the advisory committee of the compromising participants of the advisory committee. How does that fall in? Because I think there was supposed to be outside agencies that were supposed to serve on the committee, as well as those who are recognized. I know we always send in who we have as a representative of our committee,
Right.
of our community to the committee. So if you don't hear a response from a recognized entity, are they giving
We
up
will
their
reach
seat?
out. If we don't hear a response, we will reach out to the chiefs and allow the chiefs to nominate, because you still have to be a part of a recognized tribe or group.
Right. And
So-
yeah,
If you
I
have
think,
someone who does, if someone says, well, I don't want to serve anymore, they can recommend someone from their particular tribe.
okay, because I think
But-
it was a maximum of number of seats that could be on the advisory committee.
20.
And that's including like the archaeologist and
Yes.
USC and
Yes.
all of those people as
Yeah,
well.
those are mandatory slots. Yes.
So those are mandatory.
Yes.
So how many does it leave for recognition?
Well, it's just Dr. King and who else?
I
is on
mean,
the-
for the tribal communities.
it's still 20.
That's not what I'm asking. If you have to have mandatory Dr. King and USC, and I think there's someone else
will-
from the governor's office.
But I won't count that as
You're not counting those as part
No.
of your 20?
no,
Okay.
because I didn't see where it had to be counted. I'll look it up to make sure.
Yeah,
If that is the
Yeah.
case, then it only leaves 17 seats to be filled. If it's mandatory that if those 3 people have to be on the committee, then we'll subtract, and only 17 can be
and I think the
active members.
Catawba have a seat, even though they don't vote.
Who
I
does?
think they have a seat.
Who does?
Catawba.
Nation.
Yes, because the Catawba, usually in the past, the federal tribe is the governor's designee. And I think that's what the governor's aiming at again with Chief Harris. So he will definitely be on the committee. But I will check the legislation to see if I have to count that in my 20.
Okay.
And I will let you all know.
Because I think this was a point of concern when we were going through recognition process, because we didn't know in the future how many recognized entities there would be moving forward when we started the process. So they wanted to cap it out. And so it was the first come, first serve at that time. As you went through recognition, you were guaranteed a seat as long as those seats were filled to a certain max. And then after that, there was no one else
Right.
coming to that table. So I don't think we ever maxed out, but I do think there was some confusion about voting and non-voting seats at the table.
Okay, we will pull the statute and make sure that everyone gets a copy before the next meeting, so that we can be in compliance with the law. We'll definitely look that up. Thank you, ma'am. Anything else from anyone? All right, I think, did Dr. King come on?
He did I
Okay,
think I
Dr.
saw him
King, would you
earlier.
like to say a few words to the committee?
Sure. When it comes to the Institute, Chester DePrato recently retired as a research faculty member, and we just finished the search for a new member. They haven't accepted the offer yet, so I can't say who it is, but they will start in the fall. We just finished the search for a state site files manager, which we haven't had for a few years, and I'll be making an offer on that one soon. The state archaeologist position is still out. I'm being advertised, and I'm hoping to get somebody in by June 1st to take this position on full time.
Okay,
And so those are in terms of the staff and things like that. You've received recent NAGPRA compliance updates from Nina Schreiner, and not a great deal has changed. We've so far put in 3 notices to the Federal Register for repatriation of ancestors and their possessions. And a final set will be going in soon. And so that will mean that all of the ancestors and possessions that we currently know in our inventory will be repatriated following the federal law. And I know Nina has provided links to those register notices, but if you'd like them again, and as soon as we get another notice out, I will make sure it comes out. We will have to continue, as all institutions do, to look through our collections. And as we find additional ancestors and other objects that require compliance with NAGPRA, then we will follow that process. And that's likely to be an ongoing process. And I'll be glad to answer any other questions that anybody has about SCIA or anything else.
all right, any questions for Dr. King? Hearing none. Thank you, sir, for those updates. Thank you so much. Anyone else from the committee want to comment or share any information? All right, this is a quiet group this morning. Then I just want to thank you all for being on the call, and know that the work that we've accomplished over the last 6.5 years will not go unnoticed. Know that the commission will continue to fight. We will meet with our allies to keep the commission strong and going. We may need to make some changes to the commission, but those changes will not impact the relationship that we have with the Native American community in South Carolina. These will be changes that the state's recommending for all state agencies. With all the information going on around the country with DEI and all these different things, we have to make the necessary adjustments as we are instructed to by our elected officials here in the state of South Carolina. But as far as the commission serving the people that we serve, that will continue, and it will become even stronger as we go forth. So don't think that we're going to sit back and allow anybody to dissolve 30, 32, 33 years. But I can only account for 6.5. And I think we've done more in 6.5 years than this agency has done in the time that it was started back in 1993. And that's because of the people we have working here and relationships that we have built throughout the state, among all of our advisory committees, among our commissioners and the general public, as well as the elected officials. All that added together has helped us to be the commission that we are today. And I thank you all for all of your support and helping to steer us, giving us information when we need it so that we can make corrections. There was a lot I had to learn when I came here. And now I think that we are in a very good place. This is for the first time ever. We've received funding for our tribes. We've got all these legislative matters on the table. And we're going to continue doing so. So when you get your checks and what have you, I hope that your projects get off well so that we can have a good report to give to the General Assembly next time around, because we want to keep this funding coming into our Native American communities. And we will fight hard for this reservation bill to see if we can't make sure that your lands are protected the way that it should be protected. Cheryl, I see your hand up.
I'm glad you ended on that, because that was my question that I had, thinking about some of the tribes that don't necessarily have any land holdings currently. Is this a bill that could potentially open up for procurement or acquirement of lands that may have significant connection, historical ancestral lands? Is that kind of the end result, that there are certain lands that are identified as indigenous native land, but not necessarily held? So in that concept of, the federal trust lands, that this would be, I don't know how the mechanism would be, the legal
And that's what we
construct.
have to work, that's what we have to work out, those details.
Okay.
I think right now the key is to get a champion to push it. And once we get a champion to push it, we can look at the details before final bill is voted on to determine the language that we need to include in the legislation to make sure that we don't leave anyone out who should be included. So
Okay.
we're still looking at this. Brenton and Joshua will keep a close eye, and we will break down the details and see if there's something else we need to add to that language before it takes off in the General Assembly.
And in
Joshua?
the meantime, we'll just keep mapping. Okay,
Well,
thank you.
All
I
right,
know that
Joshua?
the legislation itself is phrased in a way at this point that would incentivize private individuals and organizations donating lands for potential benefits, as well as saying that tribes would have access to funding that normal states, counties, municipalities would have, and some of those funding sectors would most likely be able to use to purchase land, because sometimes counties, cities can go into some of those pots. I think one of the issues is that it cannot specifically say that it's going to give you X, Y, and Z sale of land, because that's already part of the law that cannot happen. But it's saying that you can get land, and it's saying that you'll be assisted in getting land, but it cannot specifically say the bill itself. It's somewhat similar to the bill is saying that a process will be created between, I believe it is Parks, Recreation, Tourism, CMA, and I think one other agency, about how these lands will be taken in place. So if this would go through, that would be a separate process that would be made, kind of like how if a bill goes through, it usually says you have X amount of time to create the mechanism
Right.
that they would have to go through. So at that time, the mechanisms creation will involve a lot of those conversations about when, what, and how that I believe you're worried about.
Yeah, I think that I know I've had conversations with some people from the Trust for Public Lands and obviously Open Space Institute, which does that, a lot of that work. That my question originally was, if land trusts can take and hold land under conservation and designated as public trust lands, then the mechanism's really already there. We just haven't moved into that space. There's nothing created for us to move into that space as tribal nations within the state. So that may be the start of it. I'm just wondering, I didn't know if this bill was going to actually lead to anything other than, oh, you have land and we're going to call it a reservation, which does help, but it's more about.
It gives the same tax benefits if you
Right.
read it. It gives more of the tax benefits the same way. You kind of be treated as a quasi land trust itself, so people
Right.
can donate directly to the tribes in the same similar fashion, but it would have more jurisdictional control over the lands than most land trusts do.
And I do want to just mention one thing. We're working currently with the Swakama Community Foundation on establishing an endowment. And that mechanism is not just for endowment of financial
Right.
monies, but also it can be an endowment for property, for lands. So
Yes.
we just got the draft agreement for that. And if anybody else is interested, I know they primarily work in the region that we're in, it's Waccamaw Community Foundation, but there's community foundation that is, I think it's Coastal Community Foundation
Yes.
in the Charleston area.
Right. That's
That
correct.
that could also help with tribes to set that up. So I just had a meeting a week and a half ago, and we ironed out what that would look like and going to review with the council. So just keeping that in mind, that it's a win. There's no like, what is it going to cost us? It's definitely something to consider, especially as our older folks, and then there's also people that would just like to help tribal communities that are outside of the tribe's membership base.
All right. We will definitely keep your concerns in mind as we move through the legislative process with that bill. And if we need to, we will reconvene as a committee if we need to talk about just that, before the House or before the General Assembly adjourns for the legislative year. All right. Thank you
I
all
know
so
that
much.
Sharice has updated me that there are no public comments for this meeting.
Oh,
And please remember that the next meeting will be held on June 18th, and the location is yet to be determined.
if you want an in-person, let Joshua know. And if you have a location for us to meet, let us know also.
And do you
All
know
right.
if the Council of Chiefs meeting will be June 18th, Joshua, or has that not been determined yet?
I am not aware. I don't think that has been determined.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you
Bye-bye.
guys again.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day. Thanks.